So hopefully this video will help clarify what your final is and what exactly I'm requiring you to do. A lot of you, in fact, I think all of you took Avid in middle school, and so you're familiar with the idea of philosophical chairs. And philosophical chairs is a way to debate academically and professionally so that we're not just yelling at each other and calling each other names, but actually making valid points, providing evidence, and listening to the other side as well. So the first thing that I would suggest you do is decide, do you think Romeo and Juliet are in love or are not in love? Now, regardless of which side you pick, you need to have 3 points for all 4 columns that you see here, and I'll tell you why. An important part of debating and actually showing yourself to be an intelligent human being is anticipating or thinking ahead to what the other side might say. And so rather than just putting your opinion out there, no, shush. Rather than just putting your opinion out there and thinking that it's the smartest thing anyone's ever said and everyone will believe you, you've got to humble yourself a little bit, step back and think about, okay, I have this idea, I have these opinions, what might other people have to say in response to that? That is the refutation part. And a refutation is, well, slightly different, but here we're using it to mean counter-argument. What might someone argue against you? So one common argument I saw today is that Romeo and Juliet are in love because they tell each other so. Right next to my point here, I'm going to make sure I put the page numbers and the lines so that I can point directly to the play and say, look, this is where they said it. There's proof. And I don't have the book in front of me because I'm a bad example, so I'm just going to make it up here. Page 807, lines 33 through 53. Whatever. Don't make it up because I'm going to have the book out in front of me, so is everyone else, and we're going to be checking up on you. So no cheating. This is your final. What I have to do next is think about what might somebody say against that. And the refutations are going to be a little more fluid because someone might have a good argument that doesn't come from the book, but is, oh my god, technology, but is still a good point that everyone will say, yeah, I can see where you're coming from with that. So here's a cheater for you. Somebody who is arguing against you that Romeo and Juliet are not in love might say, so something along the lines of, people say stuff all the time they don't actually mean. And I will tell you, there's a really good refute or refutation, I'm not sure which one's correct, to they tell each other they love each other. If there's something else that happens in the play that someone can point to and say, look, this doesn't mean, because this happened, it doesn't mean that Romeo and Juliet love each other because they said so. I know that sounds confusing, but I don't want to give too much away. So if you're saying that they are in love and you come up with 3 points, and if you can get to 4 or 5 points, that's even better. If you can get your 3 points in there, blah, 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 yada, yada, yada. Now you've got to think about it from the other side's point of view. Why might other people say Romeo and Juliet aren't in love? What happens in the play that supports that? What do Romeo and Juliet say? And another thing that you guys can look to besides your book are your notes on Shakespeare and what it was like to be alive in his time. So we took notes on family loyalty and courtly love versus that passionate emotional love that we always think about today for movies and music and all of that. That is a really good source for you, and it's going to clue you in as to why some people might think Romeo and Juliet are in love and why some people might think they are not in love. I am going to punch my computer. So the parameters, you need to make sure you have 3 points in all 4 columns. No exceptions. Saying I don't know doesn't work because we've read the play together. There is a modern version available on Google Classroom so that you can read through it yourselves and understand it maybe a little bit better than the original Elizabethan language. You can sort of chat with each other, although I don't want you to just write down each other's answers. I want you to use your own brilliant mind to come up with some points. And in order to get at least a C in this final, you need to speak at least twice. So common sense tells us if you have to speak at least twice to get a C, and if you speak more than that and your points are very well articulated and you have given the page numbers and lines, you might get an A or a B. It just depends on how well you argue and how well you conduct yourself, because you get docked points if you're inappropriate or rude or have, an attitude or anything like that, because we want to keep it civil. So common sense tells us if people are only coming up with 3 points each, someone else might get to all 3 of your points before you have a chance to speak. So your best bet is to get 4, 5, maybe even 6 if you can. So that way you have a wealth of points to argue from, and you don't have to worry about, oh, someone else going to say what I said. The other thing too is that if you have a lot of points to refute what the other side has to say, those count as times that you speak. So if you speak more than twice and you've got good things to say and they're all just refutations, you're good to go. So I hope that wasn't too confusing. I know how confusing I can be. I did speak about this briefly in 2nd, 3rd, and 5th periods. I don't think I really got a chance to talk to 6th period, but you guys all have friends in the other classes that you can talk to. You can also text me on Remind or email me if you have any questions. But 6th period, your final is on Monday. So be prepared. And again, let me know if you have any questions.